Libra, if you're hearing these words right now in a quiet moment of your day, maybe when the lights in the room have softened, or when the city outside is still loud but something inside you has gone quiet, allow yourself to pause. Just one pause. Because what is unfolding in your life is not a misstep, and it is not a mistake you went too far into. It's closer to a river that quietly changed direction after flowing off course for years, finally finding its true riverbed again. Libra has always been the symbol of balance, but what few people truly understand is that those who carry this energy are often the first to lean. You soften, you adjust, you tell yourself that if you just try a little harder, everything will settle. And you did try, more than anyone knows. Until the silence inside you became heavier than the words around you, until your smile no longer reached all the way in, until peace became something you could remember, but no longer touch. The universe does not take anything from you without deep consideration. It has been watching you for a long time. It has seen how you protected a connection that was no longer balanced. It has seen how you guarded others more fiercely than you guarded yourself. And when the scale leans too long to one side, the universe does not blame you. It does not judge you. It simply places a gentle hand on the scale and says, enough. Not in words, but in movement. This season has not arrived to punish you, even if pain is the first thing you feel. It has arrived to return you to your rightful place, to the value you slowly set down along the way, to the emotions you pushed aside because you believed love meant endurance. But real love, Libra, never asks you to shrink so someone else can feel comfortable. Imagine your life as a room whose windows haven't been opened in years. Everything is still there, familiar, safe, but the air has grown stale. This ending is the moment the window swings open. The wind rushes in. At first it's cold, unsettling, disorienting, and then suddenly you breathe deeper, lighter, and you realize how long it's been since you remembered what fresh air feels like. It's no accident that you've started questioning yourself more. No accident that what you once accepted now feels hard to swallow. That's because something inside you shifted before the world outside could catch up. And when the inside changes, the outside always follows. Sooner or later. This ending is simply the outer world aligning with the person who has already begun forming within you. If you feel sad, let yourself be sad. If you feel grief, let yourself grieve. But don't confuse emotion with meaning. Emotion is the wave. Meaning is the ocean. The waves can be violent, but the ocean always knows where it is. You are not failing because something has closed. You are growing because you can no longer live inside what is no longer true. At a deeper level of awareness, this is the moment you begin to remember who you were before you tried to please the world. You start hearing your inner voice again, the one that was drowned out for far too long. You begin to understand that balance is not about preventing collapse. It's about allowing what's out of rhythm to fall away, so what remains can stand strong. And when you finally stand within yourself, something strange and beautiful happens. The world changes how it stands before you. Different relationships arrive, carrying a new rhythm. Different opportunities appear without asking you to trade pieces of yourself. But before those doors reveal themselves, you need a moment of stillness to see clearly what you've just lived through and to understand why you are no longer the person you were yesterday. And it is in that quiet space that everything begins to come into focus in a very different way. Not through loud answers, not through dramatic revelations, but through a slow, steady knowing. Like standing alone in front of a mirror and suddenly realizing your eyes have changed. You are no longer searching for approval, no longer asking yourself what you should do to make someone stay. There is only one question left, honest, deep, a question you may have avoided for a long time. When did I stop choosing myself? Libra often doesn't realize that their endurance does not come from weakness, it comes from kindness. You believe that if you give a little more, listen a little longer, stay silent just a little longer, everything will work out. And for many years, that belief kept relationships alive. But it also trained you to carry the heavier side, to be the one who adjusts, the one who apologizes first, the one who shrinks their feelings so the atmosphere stays calm. Some imbalances don't appear all at once. They grow slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. At first, it's just a mild exhaustion, then longer silences than usual, then nights where you lie awake, wondering why you can be next to someone and still feel alone. That's not because you asked for too much. It's because you gave for too long without receiving real presence in return. The universe doesn't intervene at the first sign of imbalance. It waits. It gives people time to adjust on their own, to notice, to choose again. But when a scale tilts to one side for too long, when a heart keeps convincing itself that everything is fine while knowing deep down that it isn't, intervention becomes necessary. Not as punishment, but as protection, to stop a soul from slowly wearing itself away in silence. You may have felt this long before anything actually changed. A nameless heaviness, a sense of moving against the current, but continuing anyway, afraid that stopping would hurt someone else. And here is a truth Libra often learns late. When you repeatedly place other people's peace above your own truth, that peace will eventually collapse. Not because you did something wrong, but because it was built on unequal sacrifice. This goodbye did not surprise the universe. It only arrived late to your awareness. Like a door that had been gently rattling for a long time. Each time you told yourself you were fine, each time you ignored your intuition, each time you justified something that hurt you. The door shook a little more, until it could no longer just shake. It had to open. What is no longer fair cannot continue without causing damage. And the deepest unfairness, Libra, was the price you were paying with your inner peace to keep a relationship standing. The universe saw that. It understood that without this ending, you would keep giving, keep enduring, keep asking yourself whether you were asking for too much, when the real answer was always that you asked too little for yourself. So when things begin to leave, remember this. It is not because you weren't good enough to be kept. It is because you have grown beyond what could only exist through one-sided bending. This ending is how the universe slowly and firmly rebalances the scale, so you no longer have to strain yourself to hold both sides up alone. And when you stop being the support for what cannot stand on its own, you finally realize that you can stand upright, light, unburdened, fully present in your own life. And in the very moment you finally stand upright, many images begin to come into focus, no longer blurred the way they once were. You don't have to name them. You don't have to analyze them. Deep inside, you already know exactly what is quietly leaving your life. It doesn't go with noise. It doesn't leave with drama. It leaves through the absence of a sense of safety you once tried to convince yourself was still there. Maybe it's a person who always made you guess. Guess what they're thinking today. Guess whether they'll still be there tomorrow. Guess whether their promises were sincere or just meant to soothe the moment. With them, you never lacked emotion, but you lacked clarity. And over time, that lack of clarity became an invisible weight pressing against your heart. Not because they were bad, but because they weren't ready to stand beside you in the same rhythm of life. Or perhaps it's a relationship that slowly taught you to doubt yourself. You were once confident, grounded, clear about what you wanted, and then, somewhere along the way, you began asking quieter questions. Am I too sensitive? Am I asking for too much? Should I stay silent just a little longer? When a relationship requires you to constantly adjust your worth to fit someone else, it's no longer love. It's no longer connection. It's the slow erosion of self-respect. In some cases, what's leaving doesn't come wrapped in emotion at all. It wears the shape of responsibility, of work, of an agreement that once looked promising. You invested time, energy, even belief. And what came back was the feeling of not being seen. Your effort became expected. Your contribution became assumed. And deep down, you knew this truth. You were not meant to exist in spaces where respect is missing. What all of these situations share has nothing to do with appearances. It lives in the feeling inside you, a long-standing imbalance, a quiet dishonesty, not always spoken lies, but avoidance, silence, the refusal to face what's real, and then the emotional debt that slowly accumulates, where you are always the one giving more, waiting more, hoping more. The universe sees these debts. It understands that if this continues, the cost will be your mental energy, your trust in yourself, your ability to feel joy fully and freely. So instead of asking you to keep carrying it, the universe chooses release. Not rushed, not cruel, but decisive. When these things leave, at first you may feel empty. That emptiness doesn't mean you are weak. It means you grew used to having something occupy your life, even when it no longer nourished you. That space is not a loss. It is the room you need to breathe deeper, to hear your own heartbeat again, to remember what it feels like to live without constantly reshaping yourself to meet someone else's expectations. And in that quiet, you begin to realize something essential. You do not lose your value when someone leaves. You do not become less when a relationship ends. On the contrary, the courage to let what is unbalanced go is the clearest sign that you are entering a more mature season of life, a more conscious one, a more honest one, honest with the world, but most importantly, honest with yourself. And as that honesty begins to take root inside you, the world around you changes the way it speaks to you, not loudly, not urgently, but through signals so quiet, so subtle, only someone who is truly listening can feel them. You may not be able to name it right away, but you feel it clearly. Something is being guided, as if an invisible hand rests gently on your shoulder, not pushing you forward, not pulling you back, just reminding you that it's time to pay closer attention to what is unfolding within you. Your intuition begins to speak differently now, no longer vague impressions you can easily dismiss, but sensations that are specific, real, a conversation that seems ordinary, yet leaves your heart feeling heavy. A look, a sentence, a silence that lasts just a little too long. Before, you might have brushed these things aside, telling yourself you were overthinking. But now they repeat, steadily, patiently, like a soft knock on the door of your awareness. And each time, a familiar yet unfamiliar feeling rises within you. As if something is whispering, you don't need to understand more. You already do. There are days you wake up with a deep sense of clarity, even without a specific reason. Not sadness, not exactly worry, but a quiet alertness. You see things differently. What once confused you now feels obvious. Relationships that once held weight no longer pull you in the same way. And in a very ordinary moment, maybe while washing your hands, driving down a familiar road, or watching sunlight spill across the pavement, a thought appears, soft, certain. I can't keep living like this. That moment doesn't arrive with thunder or drama. It comes like the exhaustion at the end of a long journey. When you no longer want to explain, no longer want to prove, no longer want to convince yourself to stay in places that require you to shrink. And that clarity is the strongest sign of all. Not that you're ready to fight, not that you're ready to change someone else, but that you are ready to stop betraying yourself. The universe often speaks in cycles. When a lesson hasn't been heard, it returns in a different form. You may notice the same emotion appearing in different situations, the same kind of fatigue, the same sense of being left hanging, the same old question, and at some point, you realize this is no longer coincidence. It's a reminder, not rushed, not forceful, but persistent enough that you can no longer ignore it. Time itself feels different now. 3 to 4 weeks is not a promise. It's more like a wave slowly rising. On the surface, everything may look the same, but underneath, movement has already begun. Small decisions carry more weight. Unexpected encounters linger longer, and you find yourself no longer wanting to delay the truth, even knowing that truth may lead to a turning point. What matters most is this. None of these signs come with threat, only invitation. An invitation to return to yourself, to trust your inner knowing more than outside reassurance, to understand that peace does not come from keeping everything intact, but from allowing what no longer fits to leave with dignity and awareness. And when you allow yourself to listen to these signals, you're not just preparing for change, you're opening the door to a different way of living, a way where you don't have to collapse before you stop, where you don't have to be hurt again to understand what's already clear. In that quiet space, a new belief begins to form, that you are allowed to choose again, that life isn't taking anything from you, but quietly rearranging things, so what truly belongs can find its way in, gently, at the right time, when you are ready to receive it with a heart that no longer has to brace itself. And when your heart finally stops bracing itself like that, emotion begins to rise in a very honest way. Not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly, layer by layer, like a lake that has finally stopped being stirred, and only then do the shapes at the bottom begin to appear. You may feel pain, but it is not the kind of pain that makes you panic. It is the kind that reminds you you are still alive, still feeling, still sensitive enough to know what is touching you. There are moments of emptiness that arrive without warning, not quite sadness, not exactly loss, just the feeling that something familiar has quietly left, leaving behind a space you don't yet know how to fill. You might sit still for a long time without wanting to do anything at all, simply noticing that absence. And in a world that constantly pushes you to be strong, to move forward, to recover quickly, this pause may make you wonder if you're being too fragile. But no, Libra, this is not weakness. This is honesty. Your sleep may begin to change. Some nights, you lie awake for hours, not because your mind is racing, but because your body is learning how to release an old rhythm. Some mornings, you wake earlier than usual. Your chest feels slightly heavy. Your thoughts feel hazy. As if you've just walked out of a long dream you can't quite remember. This is what it looks like when emotion is reorganizing itself inside you, searching for a new order, a new breath, one that fits the person you are becoming. Sometimes, this pain doesn't have a clear cause. You can't point to a single reason. You only know that your heart no longer feels as light as it once did. But if you stay with that feeling long enough, without pushing it away, without covering it with busyness or logic, something important becomes clear. This pain did not come to stay. It came to cleanse, like rain that washes away dust that has settled for too long, so the inner sky can become clearer, deeper, more open. There is a quiet beauty in this phase, even if it's not always easy to see. The beauty of no longer lying to yourself that everything is fine when it isn't. The beauty of allowing yourself to feel fully, instead of choosing only what is comfortable. And it is in these fragile moments that you begin to treat yourself more gently. You stop forcing yourself to be strong right away. You stop comparing your pace to anyone else's. You simply acknowledge that you are moving through a real change. The message of this season is not to endure. It is to trust that pain has a purpose, to trust that emotion, no matter how uncomfortable, is serving your renewal. In many parts of the world, this is called a reset, not an ending, but a recalibration, a return of everything to its rightful place, including you. And when you sit with your pain long enough, you begin to feel it change shape, from sharp to quiet, from chaos to clarity. From the question, why is this happening to me, to the question, what is this teaching me? That is when you understand this pain is not the end of your story. It is the comma you needed to keep writing, with a different tone, a different rhythm, and a deeper truth. And in that stillness, when you take a full breath and realize you are still here, still whole, still capable of feeling, something new begins to appear. Not loud, not dazzling, but steady. The sense that even as everything changes, you have not lost yourself. That this pain did not arrive to destroy you, but to return you to a lighter version of yourself, a truer one, and one who is finally ready for what is waiting ahead. And when you become ready in this way, the universe begins to whisper a core lesson you have been carrying for a long time. Perhaps not just in this chapter of your life, but across many moments when you chose to bend instead of stand firm. This lesson doesn't arrive as a command. It arrives as a slow, deep realization. Like morning light slipping through the curtains, and suddenly you understand that the night has already passed. You begin learning how to set boundaries, not with hardness, not with defense, but with gentle honesty toward yourself. Before, every time you said no, a wave of guilt would rise inside you. You worried about hurting others, about disrupting harmony, about being misunderstood as selfish. But now, as you look back on all the times you stayed silent to keep the peace, you see the cost clearly, not paid through arguments, but through quiet exhaustion, through long nights asking yourself how you drifted so far from who you are. And in this new clarity, you understand something essential. Boundaries are not walls that block love. They are the lines that allow love to exist without erasing you. There is a subtle difference between choosing truth and choosing comfort. Comfort arrives quickly, softly, without disruption. It offers temporary safety, like sitting in a familiar room even though the air has gone stale. Truth is different. It can feel hard to breathe at first. It asks you to face what you once avoided. But only truth creates space for you to breathe deeply again. And in this season, Libra, you are learning to trust that you are strong enough to hold the truth and worthy enough to stop living inside things that are only comfortable on the surface. You are also learning something many people spend a lifetime reaching, that real peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the absence of conflict within yourself. Before, you kept the outside calm by creating storms inside. You smiled while your heart was tangled. You said you were fine while your body quietly disagreed. Now, as you begin listening to the honest signals within you, you see clearly. No peace built on self-sacrifice can last. This lesson is not easy. It asks you to accept that not everyone will understand your choices. Not everyone will be happy when you change. There may be surprise. There may be criticism. There may even be distance. But deep down, you know this truth. The cost of continuing to betray yourself is far greater. And this time, you are no longer willing to pay it. What is beautiful is how the world begins to adjust when you start living more truthfully. Relationships rooted in respect remain. Things that survived only through one-sided endurance fall away on their own. Not because you push them away, but because they no longer belong in the version of you that is emerging. A version that knows love is not strain. That giving does not mean losing yourself. That you do not have to shrink to stay in anyone's life. This cycle of Libra carries a deeply human reminder. Every person has the right to live in true balance, not just outwardly, but from the inside out. You can be kind without erasing yourself. You can be compassionate without neglecting your own needs. And you can walk in peace without carrying the weight of what no longer belongs to you. As you sit with this understanding, a quiet calm begins to spread. Not an empty silence, but a grounded peace. Peace that comes from knowing you are in the right place, from no longer needing to justify your emotions. And within that calm, you begin to feel a new current forming, gentle but steady. It carries you forward in a different way, a way where lessons are no longer learned through pain, but through awareness, and where every step you take begins with respect for yourself. And as that current begins to guide you, you notice something unexpected. Life is no longer pushing you to rush. The rhythm around you slows just enough for you to breathe, to observe, to feel where you are in this journey. The energy inside you is no longer heavy. It's lighter now, but not fragile. Like setting down a bag you've been carrying for far too long, your shoulders finally relax, and only then do you realize how accustomed you had become to being tired. Your mind clears in a very natural way, not the sharp alertness of constant defense, but a gentle clarity. You begin to see things as they are. You stop painting hope over what has no real foundation. You stop telling yourself stories to justify the absence of respect. You start to recognize what is genuine care and what is simply habit, what truly nourishes you and what drains you just to keep existing. In this new space, new people begin to appear. Not loudly, not suddenly, but right on time. It may be a personal connection or a professional collaboration, but what they share is this: you no longer have to guess. There is a clarity you once thought was rare. You don't have to shrink your emotions to fit someone else's comfort. They listen when you speak. They show up when you need them. And most importantly, they do not treat your kindness as something owed. You begin to understand that balance doesn't require effort. When a relationship is healthy, it adjusts on its own. No one has to carry both sides. No one has to give first every single time. There is a natural exchange, like breathing in and out. Easy, steady. And within that rhythm, you no longer feel as though you're trading yourself for a place in someone else's life. The greatest shift, perhaps, is not in what arrives, but in how you attract it. When you stop accepting imbalance, you send a clear signal, not with words, but with your way of being. You tell the world that you know what you are worthy of, and the world listens most closely to the signals that are honest. Those who enter now carry respect. The opportunities that arrive do not ask you to sacrifice your peace. You no longer prove your value through endurance. 3 to 6 months is long enough to look back and short enough to still remember where you once stood. The difference becomes unmistakable, not the kind that impresses others, but the kind you feel when you wake up lighter in the morning. You question yourself less. You apologize less for emotions that are completely valid. You stop asking whether you're asking for too much, and you find more moments where you smile to yourself simply because everything feels where it belongs. There is something quietly beautiful about this phase. The feeling of meeting yourself again, but as someone more mature, more gentle, and no longer willing to compromise with what hurts you. You no longer search for validation outside because you've already given it to yourself. And when that happens, every relationship around you is forced to change how it exists. The goodbye that once frightened you no longer looks like loss. It becomes a necessary turn, a small step back, so you can move forward without dragging old weight behind you. And as you walk with this lightness, you stop asking when things will be okay. You know they already are. They began to be okay the moment you chose to respect yourself. In this very ordinary stillness, a quiet faith begins to grow, that what comes next does not have to resemble what came before, that you are no longer bound to old patterns, and that the road you're walking, even if it hasn't fully revealed itself yet, is leading you toward truer connections, more lasting ones, places where you can be yourself without asking permission, and where balance is no longer something you seek, but something you live every single day. And as you walk this path, a different kind of calm begins to stay with you. Not the calm that comes from everything being perfect, but the calm that comes from no longer resisting yourself. You stop asking why things had to happen this way. You stop comparing the present to the past. You stop trying to guess what shape the future will take. Instead, you are here, fully, honestly, enough, in this moment. The goodbye that once frightened you is no longer a wound. It has become a clear line between who you used to be and who you are choosing to live as now. It didn't take anything precious from you. It only carried away what no longer matched your new frequency. And in the space that was created, you don't feel lost. You feel lighter. As if, for the first time in a long while, you no longer have to strain to keep everything from moving. A quiet kind of maturity is unfolding. You no longer feel the need to explain why you chose to leave. You no longer need agreement to trust that your decision was right. You understand that everyone has their own path, and yours no longer runs alongside what requires you to trade your peace. This doesn't make you colder. It makes you more compassionate, because you're no longer carrying resentment, no longer protecting yourself with silence or endurance. Somewhere deep inside, you realize something essential. The universe has never been on the side of loss. It has always been on the side of truth. And truth, even when it hurts at first, always leads you back to where you belong. Not a place without challenges, but a place where you don't have to lose yourself to stay. Not a life where everything is easy, but one where you are strong enough to face it, because you are living in alignment with your values. This moment, as you hear these words, may not be the moment when all the answers are clear. And that's no longer frightening, because you've learned how to trust yourself, to trust the rhythm of your own life, to trust that what is left has completed its role, and what is coming will arrive in a form that fits you better, without you having to beg, without you having to sacrifice anything more. The final message is simple, yet it carries the weight of the entire journey. When Libra dares to accept an unavoidable goodbye, the universe doesn't close a door. It gently shifts your direction toward the door that was meant for you all along. And in the moment you choose to respect yourself, the world begins to respond with equal respect. If there is one thing you carry forward from all of this, let it be this choice, light but unshakable, that you choose balance, that you choose peace, not as a promise to anyone else, but as a quiet commitment to yourself. And from that choice, everything else will find its own way forward.